Hello, everyone, and welcome to Paranormal Files Into the Darkness. I am your host, Sean Wagner. I am director of the Central Pennsylvania Investigators and also a founder of the Casco Appalachian Research Collective. And next to me, I have the great Gwen Purcell. How are you doing, Gwen?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, thank you. How are things in New Orleans?
Hot. It's still 80 degrees right now.
How warm is it?
80. It was 80 degrees. It was 82 at 11 o'clock this morning.
I don't want to hear it. It's cold in Pennsylvania, so.
Yes, you can have that.
Thank you. We hope to pass it down to New Orleans before you leave, hopefully.
No.
Well, the good news is you still have to come back north, though.
Yeah, unfortunately.
There will still be some cold days for you to enjoy. Also, I wanted to go over, first of all, the upcoming guests we have for the show. We have a nice list of guests. Brendan, can you put them up a wall if you could, please? All right. Next week, in 2 weeks, March 10th, we'll have Eleanor Wagner. March 24th, actually, she's an author. March 24th, we have Dave Spinks from the show The Unexplained, Seasons 1 and 2. And then March 31st, Barry Fitzgerald from Ghost Hunters and Ghost Hunters International. April 14th, Nancy Duturtre. She is unique in that she is called the Skeptical Psychic. I'm curious to see what that will include. Also, we're going to have Heather Taddy. She was from Paranormal State and also Alien Highway in recent times. And of course, Katie Burr from Ghost Lab and World's Biggest Ghost Hunt, Penhurst. All right. We're also going to do a contest for the show. I have a mug. I'm actually going to give 2 away, as you can see. If on Facebook, if you like and share this this program, we will take an entry and then put comment done so we can tell. We'll look back and see who the first one was to do it, and we'll get you a mug. And for the YouTube people, take and subscribe. If you're already a subscriber, you can just pretty much say done. And also give us a thumbs up. Help us out. That's what the whole thing's about. And the first one there will also win a mug as well. So we'll get back to the person. Give me a couple of days to get back to that, the latest, but I'll hopefully do it tomorrow, actually. All right. And anyone else, please also feel free to help us out by giving us a thumbs up on YouTube, excuse me, and subscribing. And same for Facebook, like and share. That would still help us out a great deal, even if you don't win. We're going to do this for the next several episodes as well. So you must be in the continental United States. Tonight, we're in for a special treat. We're going to have a college professor and legitimate parapsychologist. He's going to give us his thoughts on things, and already in the green room, he was really going off some interesting opinions. He's also written a book titled Ghost Science and the Number 42, The Success of Ghost Hunting and the Failure of Skepticism. The book can be purchased on Amazon. I read it, and I really enjoyed it. He's also the founder of Seacoast Paranormal Research Group and former owner of the KRI Center for Consciousness Studies. He has a bachelor's degree in English and journalism, as well as a master's in psychology and a PhD candidate in psychophysics. He is a professor teaching statistics and psychophysics. He also wants to integrate better science into the processes of ghost hunting and other amateur evidence gathering pursuits. He also does forsake Ukrainian egg digger. Maybe he'll have a Ukrainian egg for us. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Andy Kitt from the University of New Hampshire.
Okay, what brought on the Ukrainian egg thing?
You what?
What brought on the Ukrainian egg thing?
I saw it somewhere, and I thought the book had it in.
I did that for a living for 5 years.
Oh,
I made those things and sold them at art shows. No kidding. So it's like, whoa, you dug or something, because that's information, I've dated girls who have no clue that ever happened to me, So, well, yeah, that was the thing.
I read your book. I really read the book.
Oh, was it in I don't remember putting it in the book. Oh, maybe because my father passed.
That's where I got it from. I got it from your Spirit Talk episode.
Oh, okay, that works.
I don't think it was there. I think it was a book.
It might have been because, like I say, my father passed I remember specifically that I was working on some things for my display setup in the backyard while I was there. So, it's like, yeah, I might have mentioned it. I don't remember. I wrote the thing like 10 years ago or something. So,
well, it was really good. Well, first of all, before the show begins, for Marla, who might not be able to watch at the time right now, getting her haircut, the toast.
ding. I feel like I'm the only one who chugged that.
Hopefully,
I have to top it off with Red Bull to keep me awake. I don't know.
All right.
First, I want to correct you on something. You
Go
called
ahead.
me a legitimate parapsychologist.
Yes.
Parapsychology is actually, there are people who have degrees in it. There's only a handful, but no, I'm not one of those. My degree is psychology, and I'm working on psychophysics. COVID shut down my dissertation program, but that's imminent. I'm running experiments again, so that should be happening within a year. So, but I am a psychophysicist, not a parapsychologist. Parapsychology is a real degree, and I can't remember the names. I know Susan Blackmore is one of them. She's actually a skeptic now, but she has a PhD in parapsychology.
Well, a psychophysics degree still is rather impressive, to say the least.
It sounds a lot more impressive than it is because it's got the word physics in it. And it's not just regular physics, it's psychophysics. But it's essentially, the environment contains forces and energies and fields that our bodies interact with. And it brings rise to these epiphenomena, these sensations. Like vision we don't know what causes that feel that we think we see. It's like there's a little guy in the back of our head watching a movie screen. And that's what I study, is how the illusion of reality comes into our heads.
Oh, wow.
So, the physics part is there's all the mechanical nature. I mean, I have to understand. I do vision studies. Specifically, I do stereopsis. And I have to have a pretty good understanding of light and light phenomenon to focus properly and actually set up my stimuli for my experiments.
Yeah, just before we came on, you were talking about how what we think something is actually what we experience in the back of our brain, and we might not be actually experiencing it like we think we are.
Reality is nothing at all like what you think. Just so you know, color is not a part of reality. It's all in your head. 100%. There is nothing in the environment that has color. It's
wow.
So are you saying that on Paranormal Investigations, somebody sees a light orb or they hear knocking or whatever? That's all in
right
your head,
now,
their mind?
I am in your head. How do you know I'm here? There's what was it? Rene Descartes, what is it, 1650 or something like that, said the only true statement in the world, and that is, I think, therefore I am. The ability to ask whether or not you exist means you do. Everything else could be your imagination. So, and that remains true to this day. There are no facts. There are just really, really tightly interwound observations. And those observations are only as good as the observer.
Okay.
Anyhow, I almost sat there and led the topic for you by saying, and that really should lead us to the problem of calling debunking.
Go right ahead on that. Keep going.
All right. This drives me crazy when I see ghost hunters use that phrase, because just the phrase assumes that there's bunk involved. And no matter what the situation is, no matter how obvious your belief in what happened to the guy is, you weren't there and he was. So you can say whatever you want, and you are just asserting your reality over his. And maybe you'll convince him that you're right and he'll change his mind. But you have no idea what he actually experienced. And you're judging him based on that. So, I mean, when we investigate, yeah, we collect anecdotes and whatnot. We don't try to debunk anything because that's their experience. What we try to do is replicate the experience to see if it happens to us. And if it doesn't, well, or if something similar happens that clearly wasn't what he described, I mean, a similar event, but we recognize a cause to our event, we'll explain it that way. I can't tell him he didn't experience what he experienced. But I can tell him I experienced something really, really similar, and we found out what ours was, and it was kind of mundane, But debunking, I mean, that is a skeptic. And this drives me crazy because ghost hunters use all kinds of skeptic terms that are complete nonsense. It's utter nonsense. And if you want to mention the word Paradolia, this is a great time to talk about that.
We can go right and keep going.
Oh, my. First, I need you to explain what is Paradolia?
Are you going for my explanation?
Yes, because if I give you the explanation, I'll spoil the surprise.
All right. Well, then I'm going to be wrong, obviously, no matter what I say, but here we go. Paradolia is when you think you see something in a picture or a video, or possibly even, it can be audio too, in which you think you hear something that's a little bit different than what's actually there, or it's not really what you think it is. Either way. Okay.
Just so you know, everything you see or hear, you only think you see or hear, correct?
That is true, yes.
So what you're doing is asserting that it's not there. The process is the same, whether it's Paradolia or you're talking to me and you think you see and hear me. Well, I'm agreeing with you. You probably do because we're both doing the cameras. We can demonstrate the mechanics and all that. So, the evidence that you are talking to me is pretty good. But, you hear a voice, you don't see something present. That doesn't mean the voice wasn't there. You experience that. And you think you see it or hear it. And that feeling is real. The problem is somebody comes in and they say it's Paradolia. All you're doing is, it's the same process, whether it's Paradolia or a real experience. So the only thing that's really different between the two, it's not really there. And you weren't the one who had the experience. So you have no freaking idea.
Very true.
Literally, just the skeptic's way. And the funny thing is, the word's been around for a while. I mean, I don't remember how long, but I know it's been around for at least since the 50s. Psychophysicists have been aware of it and completely rejected it at the outset because it's circular reasoning. It's utter stupidity, So it hid in the back shelves of this one guy's book for 40 years or whatever until some skeptic found it and decided, oh my gosh, this explains everything. No, it doesn't. All it does is give you an excuse to assert your reality on somebody else's experience. Yeah, that's me ranting. That was my Paradolia rant. Sorry.
So have you ever been with someone who claimed they heard or saw something and you heard and saw the same thing?
Oh, God, I've been on so... I'm trying to remember. Definitely heard. It's hard because, when you investigate, we record, everybody wears an audio recorder. And everybody is required to listen to their auto recorder. So you're always hearing, and then I summarize stuff. So people write down all their oddball stuff, and I listen to their recordings and look for those specific times to see if I can mate them with other recorders and see if it was picked up by multiple stuff. But it's hard for me to say because it's like I don't know if I'm remembering in situ or if I'm remembering going through the evidence. That's something I never actually made note of. I do know that several people other than me I've seen the evidence where several people claim to have seen or heard the same thing. Yes. I'm just not sure if I'm one of them. I have my own experiences. I'm in my own little world. I kind of have a bizarre outlook when I go ghost hunting. The funny thing is I go ghost hunting, half the time I'm laying on the floor, on the verge of falling asleep, So.
What is your outlook and technique then, and how you do things?
Honestly, first, I do strongly believe in investigating with mediums. I understand that first, there's a lot of research. Gary Schwartz, I want to say he's University of New Mexico or something, has got 10 years worth of research demonstrating that at least some of them are getting a lot of information they shouldn't have access to. and it's accurate. The problem is the accuracy rate of the really good ones is, let's throw a number out there arbitrarily, but say 30%. That means they're wrong 70% of the time. So taking a medium's word for it is never a good idea, but not taking a medium along, it's like you have a tool is accurate 30% of the time. Well, that's better than just guessing. So we bring mediums, and what we do is we bring more than one. And we have each medium go through, we record everything they say, everything they claim to experience, and each one goes around the site by themselves. Well, there's a cameraman following them, but they have no knowledge of what the other ones have said. And then afterwards, we can compare what each one says and see where they tally, where things get interesting. We went on one investigation where the medium went through, and she's explaining how, the ghost that's here, it was a former prison. And they said, oh, no, he was like really nice. And everybody thought he didn't do it. So they gave him the prison cell right here because it was the warmest one in the prison. And then another medium goes through, and it's like, oh, my God, this was the most evil son of a gun in the history of the state. And they gave him this cell right here because it's right over the furnace, and they wanted him to roast in hell while he was alive. And it's like, wow, that's kind of interesting connection, And like I say, just the completely opposite point of view of what they're interacting with, but the core element that the dead dude lived in this particular cell. There's no evidence in the building that the furnace was under there at the time. I mean, it's a restaurant now, for God's sake. So it's not even over the kitchen. So, but yeah, I mean, you get correlations like that. Once in a while, I know I mentioned in the book that we had everybody wears an audio recorder. We had hand camera with audio working going at the time, and there's like 3 or 4 people in the room, and we get an EVP in there, and it was while the medium is talking. She's talking about a specific event, and all the recorders pick up the word no, and she just stops talking, says, yeah, never mind. Which is like, okay, we have something she seems to have interacted with. You can find these correlations if you look for them. You have to synchronize everything and pay attention to the timing of stuff, because the timing is important as the experience. And I mean, we've a number of times I don't want to use debunked, but found mundane elements to experiences we've had. We were investigating a place on the 3rd floor, and for whatever reason, you could actually hear people on the street, because specifically, I'm down on the street having a smoke break, and I chuckled over something. I saw a reflection or something. I started chuckling, and somebody recorded it and made a note of it on the 3rd floor of the place. And it's like, all right, So, okay, now we put a recorder outside to see what it's picking up, But the bottom line is you can localize information just by comparing amplitudes of the sounds. I mean, it's not perfect, but you can do it. Plus, we use stereo recorders, so we can place them and get stereo information based on, there's official terms for it, ILC, ILT. But there's ways to analyze the sound to establish where the sound was with reasonable certainty with stereo equipment. But you got to do the math. How many ghost hunters want to do math? Or better yet, statistics, right?
Statistics, yes, would be a lot more difficult, yes.
Well, you can put numbers on anything, and once you have a number, you can do statistics. And nobody wants to do that because first, it requires knowledge they might not even have. And second, that's boring. The hardest part of, you mentioned that I started Seacoast Paranormal. Seacoast Paranormal still exists, but it's more like just like a central gathering place for a lot of ghost hunting teams. We have like a monthly, social meeting. And but when we started, we investigated, and we let anybody investigate with us. We just cycled people through. The problem is 75% of them wouldn't look at their evidence. we're just there for the Disneyland ride. It's like, no, we want to do this for real. That's what KRI was when that started. We broke off KRI it's okay. People are willing to do the work. We investigate, and that grew into. You mentioned the center. It just closed before COVID started, but the center was sort of like outreach, provide information, provide classes within the limits of what we know or hope. But I mean, we address a lot of paranormal topics at the center. So,
are you going to reopen the center?
Give me a budget, sure. It's a lot. It's very time intensive. When I mean, if there was funding, it would take the worry of making it make ends meet off. But having to, I had to eat off of what that place made, and I often couldn't. You can't tell by looking at all this, but yeah, I always went hungry a lot. So, but that was open for probably 10 years, and we've had great speakers there. Kathleen Martin, Travis Walton's been there a couple of times. Various mediums. We kept trying to get Coleman. I don't know. He's up in Maine. Has a cryptid museum, and we tried to get him. But we've had a number of people at that center doing presentations. I'm drawing a blank because it's been out of my thought for 2 years.
Something like Lauren Coleman?
Yes. He's local. He's an hour away. So most of the core members of the center have been up to see his museum. I think I'm the only one who hasn't, in fact. So because it's right up the street. It's Portland, Maine.
Yeah, if it was that close, I'd try to make the trip. Yeah.
Yes, I would, but I didn't. So, and I've been in New Hampshire for 20 years. Always knew it was there, and still haven't gone. But there's stuff in Portsmouth that I haven't been to that I know it's there. I just haven't gone.
That's how it always is. You always blow off some stuff that are really close by to you.
Well, you get other priorities. The ghost hunting thing was exceedingly time intensive because, ghost hunting does not give you a paycheck. And you have to find some way to make a living and find some way to juggle personal life and then juggle that. And it's crippling. Something's got to give. And you got to do what you got to do, though. If you have the sufficient motivation to step in, you're going to keep going.
So I'm curious about something. You said that, for example, if I go on a paranormal investigation and I hear something, it could potentially, I'm guessing, we're just going to throw a number out there, 95% is probably inside my head. It probably actually didn't really happen. My brain's playing a trick on me and I'm hearing something that's really not there.
Okay, first off.
But if you bring in a psychic and she confirms, like she backs up the evidence, do you consider that to be real evidence then?
Well, you state the facts. You state the observation, the timing, coincidence, and let people draw their own conclusions. And if you have that event happen often enough and you have something to compare it to, all of a sudden you can make legitimate comparisons. But just to correct you, it's 100% certain it's in your head. Just so you know, if you hear a sound, the sounds you actually hear are nothing more than little vibrations or little variations of air density. That's all it is. The word's not floating around through the air. And by the way, if you did an actual analysis, a spectral analysis of my voice while I talk, or while you talk, or anyone talks, you know how you hear each word enunciated separately and it sounds like there's a little gap between them? That gap doesn't exist. There is constant sound. Your brain just filters out what it associates to the best and informs words, the idea of words in your head. It's really messed up. Oh my God. It's enough to make you believe in God, just the bizarre nature of how sensation and perception actually works. The simple fact is that, each nerve ending has a certain amount of time that it takes for the signal to go from one nerve from one axon to the next, from one nerve cell to the next. and whatever that is, 20 milliseconds. I don't remember the actual number, but bear in mind, there's like 6 layers in the back of the eye that it has any visual signal has to go through before it even leaves the eye. And then there's all kinds of layers before object identification takes place. And the simple fact is, and by the way, axons aren't electrical the way people think. They're actually electrochemical. It's a chemical signal with a charge goes down the axon. It's like a wave of potassium signals. So it's not as nearly as fast as people think. In fact, if a giraffe stubs his toe, it takes 5 seconds for him to realize it, just because of the distance to get to his head. Well, that same speed limit exists for us. And the simple fact is that if you watch baseball, pro baseball, and the pitcher, these guys throw pitches in excess of 90 miles an hour. A fastball, the ball is already over the plate before the batter even knows it left the pitcher's hand. And yet, routinely, these guys hit them. In tennis, it's even worse because, in baseball, there's a fairly narrow window where that ball can go, and, they can't just throw it across the place. In tennis, they have the whole field to whap that ball, and they're going a lot faster. And because of, the racket angles and stuff, you have to actually see the impact or be a really good guesser to ever intercept a professional level serve. Hockey, the guys are standing on little blades of ice, and they have to move from one end of the net to the other. And based on a swing that puck can be doing 130 miles an hour, and he can be 10 feet in front of you, and you have to react. And the bottom line is the puck is already in the net before your brain even realizes he hit it. So, these things are kind of bizarre, There's actual experiments. If you Google Lebes's half-second delay, it'll give you more information on that. But we've known this stuff for a while. And, there's a minimum of a half-second delay between an event, a real-world event, and your realization that real-world event has taken place. So
you said Bay half-second delay?
Libe, Libet.
Lidet. Okay.
B is in Baker. B is in boy. B is in Bob.
Okay. Libet. Okay.
Lib.
Okay.
So this is the stuff that excites me during the day. So it's what I get to teach. And like I say, if physicists realize the nature of reality and the importance of statistics, back in when Newton wrote his treatises, we would have discovered quantum theory a lot sooner, because it really basically says everything kind of happens on a probability basis. It's only statistical whether or not an event actually occurs, which statisticians have known since. The problem is statistics really didn't start until well after physics already had headway. Psychology too. I was talking about Rene Descartes before, how I think therefore I am is the only true statement. He also unfortunately said that the physical world, the one we share with each other, there are rules that God made, and since we share this, it is perfectly appropriate for us to find out what those rules are so we can interact with each other better. But what goes on inside of our head, that's God's ground, so nobody can do that. So for 150 years, psychology sat in the back burner because, Rene Descartes said that's God's realm. It's like, oh, okay, we'll honor that. But, 1850s, all of a sudden they started realizing, there's, physical stuff in the body. It's not just ideas. And they started, that's where psychophysics really started, is with biology, anatomy, and realizing that, there's a lot to the idea that we're little flesh machines, and there's still a lot more potential beyond that, though. I mean, I do honestly and completely believe that the soul can act independently of the physical body, and that the physical body is more of a filter of reality than it is the reality of our being itself. Did that make sense? Did
you say the soul can or cannot act independently from the body?
your, for lack of a better word, we'll call it a soul, but your personality or whatever does not require a body to exist. The body is more of a filter than it is the sum of.
So what happens to it when you die?
You drop the body.
Well, what happens to your personality and your soul? Where does it go?
Well, that's, you know, I don't want to sit there and spoil surprises. The bottom line is I don't have any direct evidence of anything, but I've read, between stuff I've read and stuff I've experienced and stuff I've discussed with mediums, and I mean the sum of knowledge that I have suggests strongly that the soul exists, does not require time or space the way we do, so it just is. And when you are born, a soul has elected to take that body in that time and place and use that body for its filter. The bottom line is it looks like souls don't experience time and space. If they want to do that, they have to take a body, because the physical body does experience time and space. You know, and it sort of creates a problem for all these mediums who are saying, oh, we're here to learn. If soul doesn't have time or space, it's not learning anything. You know, the ability to ask a question, automatically the response is there because the time doesn't exist. There's no difference between before you ask the question and after you ask the question. So asking the question is enough to answer it. Did that make sense? I can burn your head out if you want. You know, we can go deeper into this stuff. You know, it's all on how well I can elucidate what's going on in here. You know,
So what do you say about it? I was recently at Penhurst Asylum.
Okay.
And the entire group of us heard the exact same thing at the exact same time.
Nice.
In fact, I freaked out. So.
Okay.
What do you say to that? That if everybody hears the same thing, or we had a couple instances where a couple of us smelled the same thing at the same time. So is that our imagination? I mean, how can we all have the same?
It's shared imagination.
But we're all having the same one?
You know, if you're all in a room and you look on the table in the middle of the room and there's a telephone there, you are all, your imagination, you're all seeing a phone. It is your imagination, you know, the idea, the image you see, it's all in your head, right? You are all doing it. So the question you're having isn't, did you all share the experience of hearing a voice? The part you're missing is, the question isn't the voice. The question is, what's the source of the voice?
Okay.
If you all experienced it, then you all experienced it. If only one of you experienced it, you experienced it.
Right.
If the rest don't.
But if it's something that's made up in our head, how are we all experiencing that same sound at the same time?
Well,
I mean,
the obvious answer is that the sound was there.
Right.
So why did you ask?
Well, because you said earlier that it's an imagination of our mind.
But it is whether somebody shares it or not.
If I imagine that a can is being pulled across the floor towards me and there's no can there, which is exactly what happened, and
how do you know that the can's not there?
A can. What does
How did you confirm the can wasn't there?
Because I picked up all the garbage and threw it away 30 minutes before that noise came across the floor.
So you're saying that in 30 minutes nobody put a can there?
No, nobody put a can there. We all took flashlights out, looked, there was nothing there. So I could maybe say I heard a can because I cleaned that area and I picked up empty cans, but the rest of the group that I was with never knew that I cleaned up those cans. So how is it? I mean, I could see me maybe coming up with that in my head that, oh crap, you know, the can, but 15 other people that didn't even know the cans were there to begin with. I don't know.
I'm just gonna. This is my own belief system, but the strongest piece of evidence for ghosts is EVP, And a sound of a can moving, it's not EVP. It's an environmental sound that, by the way, a lot of things, I mean, the fact that you knew there were cans there really does affect your hearing. And because you knew the cans were there, if you heard something similar, your brain would reframe it. And it's, oh my God, a can is moving. And if you sit there and say that out loud, everybody will agree because they all heard something, and then their brain reframed to that vague stimuli and said, you're right, it did sound like a can. But with a voice, when words are present, language, humans are built specifically. We got brain areas specifically to both develop words and to interpret words. Wernicke's area, Broca's region, but language is, I mean, this is really, really inside of us. And, a lot of people talk about hearing voices as Paradolia, or even, worse, some type of schizophrenia. The bottom line is it happens all the time. And there's ample evidence that language is present. And when language is present, especially when it interacts with you, really does imply that there is a mind there able to form those words. Now, whether they're doing it by actually affecting the air and making molecules move to create the necessary vibrations for your ears to hear them, or whether it's touching something deeper inside your head and finding some way to crosswire the information as if the words were spoken. I mean, they're both possible. One of the big problems with electronic voice recorders is that is the voice recorder picking up something that was present but you didn't hear, or is whatever affecting the recorder directly? And these are problems, and it can happen either way. But if the voice interacts with the people who we believe are physically present, well, that implies that the interaction implies it's there. It's there then, and it knows what's going on. So EVP, I mean, we get a lot of weird noises on investigations, but as cool as the weird noise is, or as weird as the weird noise is, if it doesn't really have specific meaning, if you can't apply meaning to it, and I don't mean meaning like it was a can moved, I mean a can moved to give you a message. You have to be able to apply meaning to it to offer anything more significant, because just a random noise, I mean, you'd be surprised at how much our brain manipulates sounds to go with what we believe is going on. That's actually one of the problems when you go into a ghost hunt. You have expectations of weird things happening. So rather mundane things can come off as weird because you're listening to them in a different context. But, the advantage is if you're recording everything, you get to step back and analyze it a little more. How weird was that? And, I mean, we've picked up some pretty weird stuff. And one of them, it wasn't my investigation, but somebody else. I wish I had permission to actually play it for you, but it sounded like some sort of public service announcement warning of you of the danger of kids. It's like it just showed up. There's no intro. There's no fuzziness. He didn't hear it. And I mean, I know and trust the guy, so it's no question that, but whatever it is, this is nothing like anything I've ever heard before. And it sounds like, a 50s public service announcement. They'll take control if you let them, and it's very distinct. And it begins and ends. So it's not RFI. Everybody loves to say radio frequency interference. Radio frequency interference, if the thing is tuned enough to pick up a specific radio frequency, it's always going to pick up that frequency. You don't get 2 minutes and that's it. It always picks it up, when teeth resonate at specific frequencies, that radio signal it's picking up, the guy doesn't pick it up for 10 seconds and never again. It's constantly going, So, and then there's the other thing is there's some fade in, fade out variability in radio waves. And if that's happening, the signal will fade in and fade out. It won't start abruptly and end abruptly. And this is what the guy has. It's just all of a sudden, there it is. And, it's like, wow, I don't know what that is. It's not interactive, so I can't say it's a ghost. It's not even just one person talking. It's somebody narrating what appears to be a scene of little kids. because you hear little kids playing, and oh my God, the problem with psychophysics is the moment you realize how this perception stuff works, and you take a step back and you try to think about what's actually going on. Like you were talking about Paradolia. I mean, when you say it in your head, it makes perfect sense. So yeah, people see stuff that's not there all the time. The problem is none of it. I mean, it's the same functions, whether the thing is there or not. It's the same functions, the processes in your brain. So really, Paradolia is just an assertion that it's not there, when that's actually the question. Was it there? I mean, the face on Mars, everybody knows the face on Mars looks like a face. It's not Paradolia. It looks like a face. The question is it man-made or is it an accidental feature? And the only way you can ever say it's Paradolia, which, I mean, it can't be, because even if it was an accidental feature, it still resembles a human face. Or at least a humanoid face. Hopefully that made the Paradolia issue a little clearer. That was always good.
Again, go ahead. Sorry. Again, we have Professor Andy Kitt from the University of New Hampshire. Also, if anyone has
to say where I work, because I get in trouble when I do this kind of stuff.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm only an adjunct. They can fire me at the end of the semester. I am not tenured.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I did not say. You did not hear what I said. Then, by the way, I did not say anything.
Yeah, I work at a major New England research university, because that's exactly what we are.
Okay.
But that way, at least it's one of several possibilities. But
All right.
people look, they see I live in New Hampshire, they can probably guess.
There's a good chance they guessed that particular school. But anyway,
if any of my students watch the video, they will definitely know it's me.
Oh, I can imagine. Sure, I would expect they would.
So yeah.
Anyone, go ahead. Oh, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them. Please put in all capital letters so that we can tell, and that way Brendan can post it. Then, by the way,
excuse me.
What got you started into ghost hunting and everything?
What's that?
What got you started into ghost hunting and everything?
It's funny. Back in 2007, my father died, and even though the circumstances, his response to his dying was kind of interesting. Like I say, I tend to think outside the box. But after he died, literally hundreds of really weird little events would take place. A couple events were just so big that I can't explain this. But most of them are just little things that have meaning, like my mother lost her cell phone. Bear in mind, my mother is paranoid. She goes to bed with her cell phone, so if somebody breaks in, she can immediately call the police. So, I mean, it's on the nightstand next to her bed. And one morning she gets up, it's not there, and we find it in the living room on the photo of my father that we intended to use for his obituary. But like I say, these are events that have significance. My father was a bird watcher, so somebody gave him a clock that every hour you get a different bird call. And after he died, the same bird call kept playing, and that was the morning dove, which, needless to say, has significance, particularly since it's my father's clock. And like I say, there's hundreds of these events going on in the weeks after he died. I helped my mother settle in for like maybe 6 weeks after he passed. I mean, she's on her own now, so I stayed in Syracuse for that time, and so many weird things happened that when I got back to New Hampshire, I started looking around for people or anybody who wanted to talk about it, and I didn't know how to do it. So I ran into something called meetup.com, and there were like ghost groups and stuff in Boston and Portland, Maine, and wherever. And it's like, no, I'm way too lazy to drive an hour. So I started my own group. And at the time, Ghost Hunters TV show been around for maybe a year, and people were all into it. I didn't know about the show really at the time. I mean, in retrospect, I think I saw an episode with my father, which he was completely not into. So we ended up changing the channel. But I vaguely remember, one of the episodes when I finally did get to watch them. Do the YouTube Ghost Hunters make credible videos? Generally, Okay, bear in mind, they are working within the limits of their own experience and their own beliefs. Can they do it better? Darn straight they can. But, bear in mind, your access to information. How many people do you think are publishing good information? If you want good information, Society for Psychical Research they're in London. Don't go to the American version because the American version seems to have been out of business for 20 years. But SPR in London, Society for Psychical Research, is the closest thing to a body that has accessible information. There is also a parapsychology organization in the U.S., but that's almost entirely for academics. So unless you're really comfortable reading journal articles, that might not be a comfortable way to go. SPR is a lot more approachable. And the Brits have a much more open mind and there's still fringe on elements trying to do like the scary, let's do a ghost hunt and everybody be afraid. But then there's legitimate people trying to do it and doing a good job. So, did I answer that question? I don't know. Sometimes I get off in a tangent and I don't remember what the original question was. YouTube's probably a better source, or possibly a better source. The problem with YouTube is you've got full spectrum. Good people, bad people, everything in between, where TV is almost universally bad people. So that way, Sean, you could be one of the good people on YouTube. But if you're on TV, you're done.
I am, because all my videos are boring.
Oh, there you go.
Because it's reality.
Yeah.
That's what you have with TV. It has to be for entertainment. And
yes, it's a way to kill time.
Exactly. And so you got to put something good into every episode, or people aren't going to watch. So that's what my opinion is on
Kardashian TV show. I mean, was there anything good in there? And yet people watched it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I probably insulted the Kardashians. I don't even know who they are. So.
I think they'll survive.
Yeah. It won't stop anybody from watching the show, I'm sure.
Most people agree with you.
Yeah, not enough to make the sponsors go away, so there you are.
Well, probably the stranger and all more off the wall it is, you want to see what's going to happen next.
Right.
What you say about a shock jock.
Now, there's a lot of evidence that I'm not aware of any ghost hunting show that isn't at least partially scripted. Nobody wanted to talk about it. I mean, bear in mind, I've met Jason Hawes, met Grant Wilson, what's his name there, tattoo guy. The dude with the tattoos. On Ghost Hunters. He's been there forever.
Gonsalves?
Yes. I've met him. I mean, they're all great people. I mean, they're great to talk about or talk to. But the bottom line is none of them will, the moment you sit there and even imply that any aspect of that is anything but reality, they stop talking to you. But there's still people, Donna Delacroix, maybe? Donna somebody, who has come forward and said that's one of the reasons she left the show, is that sometimes stuff happens that they didn't catch on camera, so they replay it. So how scripted is that? I don't know. All the off investigation stuff is definitely scripted, and some TV shows are just scripted so badly. Who is it? Long Island Medium. They actually, I mean, you can't just go up on to a person in the street with a camera. You've got to get approvals. And apparently in their consent form, there's actually like an interview process, and there's people saying that she uses the information from that sheet in a reading. So none of it is as random as it seems. So TV is reality TV. The reality is an illusion, but it was anyhow. So,
well, it's for entertainment, and
yes,
and the reality is, are you entertained?
You want to really get messed up? Even that's true of the news too. Mm-hmm. It's not there to tell you the truth. It's there to entertain you, to kill your time with something you think is relevant and important. So how true and accurate it is, the accuracy of truth. Bear in mind, even World War, what was it? Spanish-American War started based on newspaper lies. So that's 120 years of newspapers lying to you. And it is what it is. You can believe it, but you better check with more than one source and check with people who don't believe it. That's the value of skeptics, is to see what other opinions are there. When you immerse yourself too much in any type of parapsychology community, it's very easy to get lost in all the information. And the information always seems to agree with each other. The problem is when you're in a community like that, the agreement comes even though people don't necessarily agree. They will say they agree to be community minded. If you want to get at good arguments, though, is this true or isn't it? You have to look at both sides and actually weigh the evidence. When I had the center, that's actually every week I would pick a different topic and I would sit there and look pro and con and give people my best assessment of how real it is. And one of my favorites was I looked into the Flat Earth Society and found out, everybody says, oh, it's a bunch of religious nuts. I'm sorry, but the Flat Earth Society was founded by a bunch of scientists who accidentally proved the Earth was flat. The problem was there was more information they didn't have at the time. So obviously, 20 years down the line or whatever, the scientists disbanded because they found out, okay, there's extra information we didn't have. But yeah, the original set of experiments proved the Earth was flat. They didn't have enough information to draw the proper conclusions from their experiments. So, but the Flat Earth Society now, some of their evidence isn't ridiculous. It's just not well thought through.
There actually is a society with that name?
Yeah, Flat Earth Society definitely exists.
Oh.
Still. And, there's definitely flat earthers out there. And it's like, I'm sorry, the evidence, it's really easy to prove the Earth isn't flat. It's not so easy. Don't confuse Flat Earth Society with Hollow Earth people. Hollow Earth actually has remarkably good evidence, and someday I'll look at the more or less far fringe thing to see how accurate that is. But a lot of their claims do raise serious questions about the nature of the Earth, and it doesn't help that the Russians actually dug a hole 12 miles into the Earth and found out it is nothing at all like what science says it should look like. It gets warmer down there, but there's running water 8 miles down. That shouldn't happen. So there's freakish things. People seem to look at science as if it's this fixed body of knowledge. Bear in mind, every single scientific theory we have eliminated, we have said, oh, that's not true, was valid at the time. It was the best knowledge we had. And bear in mind, especially now that we know that there are objects out there defying the laws of physics, it really does suggest that our physics is not complete. And by the way, that's always been true. They keep talking about how nothing can go faster than the speed of light. And yet there are entire galaxies, they don't have engines, but they're going faster than the speed of light. Well, that's actually, they're warping the scientific excuses. They're warping the space around them. And that's how they go, because that can happen, but it can't go faster than the speed of light, but they can distort space. And bear in mind, they don't have engines. There's nothing there. I mean, the mentality, they will take ideas, no matter how bizarre, to fix holes in their logic. And, until it's testable, they just assume that that's true. The problem is some of these ideas they come up with are pretty darn bizarre. Why electrons don't crash on into the center of the atom is one of those questions that physics has never been able to explain. And the only two explanations I ever heard were just so bizarre and so obviously untrue that I don't know how physicists can deal with it. Just the idea that, no, electrons really should just crash into the protons and be done. That's me babbling again. I do that sometimes. Sorry.
Can you talk about your thoughts on skepticism?
Okay.
A little bit, but not
Did you
here.
talk about that in the show, or was this in the 5 minutes before? The problem with skepticism is there's so darn many of them. and they have just really crazy ideas. And they are so fixated on their own belief systems. And bear in mind, even if they thought they were wrong, if they've been around for 20 years espousing the same point of view, even if they found new information that contradicted them so strongly that they question their belief system, they still can't admit they're right, or they're throwing away their 20-year history. So I don't remember if I think it was Michael Shermer, who's the writer for either Nature magazine. He's an opinion writer for Nature magazine or something like that. Very famous skeptic. But when the Navy released its videos, and bear in mind, they didn't just release them and say, hey, we don't know what these are. They analyzed the stuff for years before they released this stuff. And it's 3 videos, and Michael Shermer is sitting there. The Navy says, the Navy, with all this tech to analyze the videos, says, we really don't know what these things are. And Michael Shermer sitting there, well, that one's a weather balloon. It's like, are you freaking serious? Dude, when the Navy says it doesn't know what it is, bear in mind, the Navy's been feeding the weather balloon story, and, Air Force has been feeding the weather balloon story for 50 years. And apparently, now they say, well, it's not, this one's not a weather balloon, even though Michael Shermer says it is. Like I say, the skeptics can no longer even face the fact, when you throw the truth in front of them that they are wrong, they can't accept that because now it affects their income. They have to carry on the lie. Tell that to, I don't want to drop Joe Nichols' name just in case, whatever, but tell that to Joe Nichols and see what happens, So the bottom line is the skeptics have always sat there and worked on assertion rather than on what the actual observations were. And one of my favorite things was Phil Klass was a really big UFO skeptic back in the day, back in the 80s or whatever. And somebody talked about Operation Stargate, that the military was looking at psychics to, try to use them as spies. And Phil Klass said, that's not true. I know it's not true because if it was happening, I would know. And then, 10 years later, after Phil Klass dies, it gets released. Oh, yeah, Operation Stargate went on for 20 years. They were using psychics to try to find out. It's the whole remote viewing project. Yeah, it really happened. And Phil Klass didn't know. Surprise, surprise. People keep talking about, what is it, the James Randi fund or contest or whatever it was. I actually looked at that website 10 years ago. I don't know if it changed before Randy died, but back in the day, they were very proud of the fact that nobody ever applied, because part of the application process is you have to prove whatever your claim is to skeptics, and then they will let you prove it to scientists. And so I'm sorry, if you can prove it to skeptics, there is no need to prove it to scientists. There is always a logical way to shoot down anything. Because if something's impossible, you just say, well, that's impossible. So clearly you're cheating. And skeptics have actually used that as an excuse for unusual phenomenon, Well, obviously it must be a hoax. Because if the reality, if your reality is strong enough, it doesn't matter what you observe. You will shift your observation to fit into that reality. And skeptics just absolutely refuse to open their eyes enough to understand that they're not the most observant people in the world. People experience weird stuff all the time, and at least some of it is demonstrably weird, not just they had something unusual happen that can be explained away. Somebody doesn't get burns on his body from a weather balloon. So yeah. And the moment you open your eyes and actually let your reality slip, that kind of fixed reality slip, all of a sudden you start believing people. People experience things, whatever the cause, they are experiencing it. And now you have a choice. You can either try to experience it too, or you can maintain your it doesn't happen reality and just say stuff. Oh, it's Paradolia. No. Paradolia is an assertion, not a fact. You have to prove it didn't happen. Like I say, the face on Mars, that is not Paradolia until you go up there and prove. Well, it doesn't matter. It's not Paradolia because Paradolia is just perception anyhow. The question is it man-made or made by artificially, or is it an accident of nature? There's nothing Paradolia about it. Uh-oh. Gwen's
Really
talking.
skeptic.
I saw your lips moving, but no voice.
So when it comes to the paranormal, are you a believer or are you a skeptic?
I am skeptical of many things I hear. I test them all, but I absolutely believe that effects that people call paranormal are, in fact, stuff that science is not yet willing to talk about. The existence of a soul or something akin to it. The idea that your personality can exist without your body. To me, that's established fact. There's just too many different angles of research coming up with positive information, establishing it to be true. Sorry, that's all there is. You can ignore the research. You can ignore the evidence. Once you get into the fringe element that, there's organizations of spirit guides controlling the planet, that kind of weird stuff. There's no way to establish that. So, there's a lot of things that I won't say it's not true, but I personally don't believe it, So how fringe am I? Well, it depends how rigid you are, Joe Nickel can't believe this stuff because he's got a lifetime of skepticism to defend, even though all the evidence suggests he's wrong.
Would you be willing to debate him on the air here, Joe Nickel or Ben Radford?
Ben Radford, I read his book and it was just so ridiculous. I would have fun with that. I bought a copy of his book. Tell him I bought it used because I didn't want him to get any money out of it. And it's funny, but it's true. Actually, I had it given to me by a friend of mine who's a skeptic. He said, you should read this. It's really good. And I read it and I'm, dude, are you kidding? This is crap. And he never actually read the book. It's like, he knew Ben Radford was a skeptic, so it must be true. Is that it? It's like, my God, you want to have fun? James Randi wrote a book, Flim Flam, where he goes slamming how statistics works. And all he really did is explain the fact that he has no understanding of how statistics works, but he's trying to slam a scientist for his statistical analysis when James Randi, I don't care how smart the guy is, he just doesn't know, Smart isn't what you know, it's how fast you can learn. James Randi just never learned how to do anything other than cheat people and lie to them and do magic tricks. And that's essentially what skepticism is. It's a bunch of people who are pretending they know more than everybody else, when in fact, Joe Nickel, like I say, he's a smart man. He's got a PhD, but his PhD is in folklore or some type of English thing. So that's not a research field. So how much understanding does he actually have of research? And I got to think none, because just reading his stuff, he's kind of makes silly conclusions. In fact, there's a lot of historians and whatnots that are skeptics that write from their own perspective. Oh, I wish I remember the guy's name. Ben Radford referred to him a few times, but there's a guy who wrote a book, and he said right in the book that he only picked examples that matched his belief system, and he tried to use that to prove ghosts don't exist. It's like, dude, you selected. That means you ignored all the evidence that they do exist. There's nothing even kind of scientific about that. That's just debate, and it's a really bad one to begin with. And that really, in the end, that's all skepticism is asserting their reality with no defense. In fact, most of them have no clue what real science is. Oh my God, electromagnetic fields, the bizarre things even ghost hunters say about that drives me nuts. So, yeah, the thing is, if you want to, don't just trust other ghost hunters in what they say. Learn how to read academic articles and start with the abstract. The abstract will tell you what they actually did and give you the outcomes. It doesn't necessarily tell you how good the experiments are, but it'll get you into that scientific mindset. Each field has its own jargon. The language in my field, I have to know the difference between luminance, illuminance, radiance, irradiance, because they are different things, and there's different mathematical ways of calculating them. Where other people just, to you, they're all the same word. They all mean the same thing. How bright's the light? Well, no, that's, there's different ways of measuring how bright that light is, and each one has its own term. So, but like I say, there's entirely different language for science, and the people who are doing ghost hunting are guessing. It's like the word energy, and even physics. Physicists have trouble with this one, but energy isn't something an object has. It's actually just a bookkeeping system for forces. Energy doesn't cause anything to change. It requires a force, and the area of effect of that force is the field. And when something enters that field, that force can affect it. And energy is just a way of measuring how much change can happen because of the sudden encountering of the force. Energy doesn't do anything. It's a bookkeeping system. And, tell that to a skeptic, tell that to a believer, doesn't matter. They don't get it. And in fact, a lot of physicists treat energy as if it's a physical thing that changes hands, because that's the way it was treated since 1650. So, in fact, the original physicist, Newton, thought it had to be there in order for the world to work. Something invisible called energy must exist. No, it's actually the stuff just enters these fields and stuff happens. The actual mechanics of most forces is completely unknown. They just keep, like the Big Bang. The problem with the Big Bang, that's the origin of the universe. Okay, that little point in space that exploded, where did that come from? And anytime saying it was magic is just as good as the scientific explanation, then it's no explanation at all. So, the evidence against the Big Bang, they knew when they first came up with it, they didn't call it the Big Bang because, they wanted to, that was an insult. Another professor said, that's absurd. It's what, you're saying the universe was just a Big Bang and it stuck. They kept it was an insult, not the name of a theory. And the bottom line is they knew at the outset that there's evidence against it. And now people just overlook the evidence against it. And science does what it does. And now we're stuck with a physics that can't explain the motion of objects that our military aircraft are recording. And clearly somebody's wrong. The object exists. It's doing what it's doing. And that's true of ghosts too, I don't care what physics says, what psychology says, what anybody says. The bottom line is the experiences are happening. And it's like Gwen, the experiences are being shared. These seem to be real world things that are happening. We need to expand the belief system and actually expand our methods to actually see what's happening, not just write it off to our imaginations or Paradolia or any other assertion you want to make. If you want to find out what's going on, you have to put yourself in that situation. This is actually the big problem with most of the paranormal effects is the limited. It's not like, you hit a nail with a hammer. Every time you do that, you can make that happen at will. When you're dealing with ghosts, they have choice. They don't have to show up and participate. And assuming, of course, they are actually independent personalities. It's their choice, and they are not universally common. You don't just go to the grocery store and find the aisle with ghosts in it. It's not like that. You can't find them, and there's a lot of difficulties. UFOs, you don't just look up in the sky and one zips by. It's a rare occurrence, and you have to be ready for it, and nobody ever is. And the only people who are the closest people to being ready for a UFO is the military. That is what they do, is protect our airspace. And now they're saying, no, this stuff really happens. So, now all of a sudden, all those claims over the last 80 years that were written off, now we have to reinvestigate them. But even, what was it? The Condon Committee back in the late 60s looked at like 800 of the best cases and were only able to find explanations for 75% of them. That means 25% of those were real UFOs. And nobody ever wanted to admit that. They just wrote it off saying, these are nothing. They're perfectly safe. Well, one doesn't match the other, Their claim doesn't match their finding. And these things are kind of disturbing.
That is much higher than I would expect. If that was an actual percentage, that's a lot higher than I would expect to hear.
It was unusually. It was over. I want to say it was over. Bear in mind, I read the report. The book is like this thick in paperback. You know, it's called the Condon Committee Report. On I'm sure I have a copy here somewhere because I have like I don't know if you see it. 1, 2, 3, 4. You only see 4 bookcases behind me. There's 4 more over there. There's another one there. There's 3 on the other side of the camera. This is my living room. That's not counting the 2 in my bedroom, and I have 6-foot racks in a spare bedroom that are filled with stuff. It's like, I read a lot, you know, it's kind of what I do. And it's important. You know, you want information, taking one person's story is never a good solution. Because find the guy who doesn't believe him, see what he says. Odds are they're both going to be fringes and the truth is going to be somewhere in the middle. And, you know,
that is definitely true.
Yes, not enough people. The thing is that it doesn't make good TV. Saying, well, you know, we found the truth and it's not quite crazy and it's not quite crazy. So, you know, who wants to watch that? So, sorry, I'm going to bore the crap out of people once I get famous.
Not at all. Well, we are about out of time. I want to thank our guest, Professor Andy Kitt, for coming on with us.
It's creepy hearing you call me professor.
I'm sorry, what?
Technically, I am an adjunct professor, but I don't even tell my students to call me that.
Oh, really?
It's creepy. It's like calling me Mr. Kitt. It's like, I don't remember people calling my father that, you know? It's like, wow, that's just weird. So, yeah, call me Andy. I mean, the professorship is strictly on an as-needed basis. And the good news is they always need somebody to teach statistics. You know?
That's a good point.
So I always got a job at any university I want because there it is. You know, there's just not enough people. I actually enjoy it. You know, the bottom line is everybody at the academic level tries to make statistics a lot more complicated than it is, when it's actually a couple of key concepts that you just have to do workarounds with them to make them work in specific situations. But the key concepts are the same, you know, that, you know, if you record anything enough times, there'll be variability. And all we're doing is seeing if the variability from your special event belongs in this group or doesn't. And there's mathematical ways of doing it. And they're really simple. And they're only as complicated as a textbook wants to make it. And textbooks don't sell if they're not complicated. It's like TV. You know, no drama, TV.
That's definitely true in TV, yeah.
Yeah, so. Yep. So the more complicated you make your textbook, the more you can charge for it.
I can see that as well.
Right?
Definitely.
No, I'm not judgmental, except I'm always right. Oh my, it was fun leading the conversation today. So
we appreciate it. Thank you. And also, he has a book, Ghost
Don't
Science.
talk about the book. It's been out of print for a while. But I do want to point out that I've looked at literally tens of thousands of photographs of ghosts. And hands down, that's the best one. Not because it looks like a ghost. It does. But because it's supported by, two people were there. Both of them make the same claim. Neither one of them saw the ghost. But both of them say that when that picture was taken, immediately afterwards, that rifle fell off the wall. And by the way, there's a security camera footage that shows that rifle falling off the wall.
Oh,
so
wow.
You see the flash, you see the rifle fall. When you look at the photo, that's there. And my God, either this is the most complex hoax I've ever seen in my life, or, this is some hick he won a rifle in a contest at a gun shop. All they're doing is taking a picture of the winner. And I wasn't given permission to show his face, so I had to crop it to just the hand. And because when the gun shop was open, obviously they don't want it out there that there's a ghost there. So I was allowed to view the video, the security video, but I was not allowed to keep a copy of it. So, I personally watched the video. I talked to the people involved, And it's a bigger situation than just, ooh, that showed up in my picture. So no, there's a lot of interlocking evidence that says whatever that is shouldn't be there, and whatever that is probably caused the gun to fall. So anyhow, that's my coolest photograph. And I was lucky to get permission to print it. So
good job there.
Yay. So
also, hopefully you'll come on again. We appreciate you having you with us. I still have a lot more material. We barely
I know, right?
barely touched the outline.
I rant easily, so you can't tell me to open my mouth and not tell me to shut up and expect to get to the list, But I insisted on Paradolia because that one bothers me. Skeptics have used it so much that even Ghost Hunters team used the term matrixing to mean essentially the same thing. But what it is, the problem is, it's circular reasoning. That's the process of how we identify objects. There's nothing, the objects aren't in our heads. We're just mapping them. So it's never perfect resolution. So no matter what we're looking at, it's just our idea of what we're looking at. And there's no question that the face on Mars looks like a face. That's not the question. The question is, what caused the actual thing? And that's the part the Paradolia is just a way of asserting it happened by accident, when that isn't actually the question. So, like I said, I personally take offense when Ghost Hunters use Paradolia, because it just means they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what the word actually means. They don't know what the process of perception is. It's the same process. I mean, when you look at, if I put like a milk bottle outside a screen door, you'd still recognize it as a milk bottle, right? Mm-hmm. Even though something like 65% of the actual edges and parts of the milk bottle are covered by screens, you recognize that pattern, and it's the same process. Granted, for whatever reason, you don't have all the image data on the picture, but we do understand relationships. All I have to do is put two little circles in a half moon, and people see a face. So I'm telling you, that thing on Mars looks a lot more like a face than a smiley face. And yet people readily recognize the smiley face as a face. The characteristics of a face, the relationship of the things that resemble eyes to nose to mouth to chin to forehead, those things are all, that's what a face looks like. Those relationships, those characteristics are there. So to say it's anything but, I mean, the question isn't, does it look like a face? The question is, why does it look like a face? And Paradolia is just asserting one over the other. It's natural. It's an accident. You don't know it's an accident until you go up there and look at it. And even then, you might not know.
Very good point.
Diatribe of the night. So, yep, I need more Red Bull because I'm not spastic enough, right? So,
you probably do need more, yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go. Normally, I get up at like 4 a.m, but they cancel. Classes are canceled for tomorrow. They already notified me that we're expecting a foot of snow up here, and so I can sleep in. So I can drink Red Bull now. I can stay up till 10.
Let's reach for the stars.
I might even do my laundry tomorrow. So.
All right. Also, we wanted to, everyone who's still tuning in, if you're still tuning in, please take and hit the subscribe if you're on YouTube, and share or at least like and thumbs up back on YouTube. But on Facebook, obviously the like and share. If you're still here, it's thank you for tuning in. We're glad you tuned in. Also, our next guest on March 10th will be author Eleanor Wagner. She wrote books on ghost stories, and also she is a lady ghostbuster. Yay. Also, we have a promo to show you for Jack's show coming up on Tuesday. Go ahead, Brendan.
Located in modern-day Turkey, Göbekli Tepe is one of the most important archaeological finds known to mankind. The discovery of this stunning 11,000-year-old site sent shockwaves through the scientific community and beyond. How can such an impressive structure predate writing, metal tools, or even pottery? Was it the original Garden of Eden, or the first religious temple built by man? Join host Jack Carey as he rips the shroud off the centuries-old mystery of Göbekli Tepe on The Next Threshold, Tuesday, March 1st, only on CARC Universal.
Hey, this is Chuck Larson. You're watching the CARC channel on YouTube.
All right, and we do have one more promo to air for From Behind Tall Trees. That will be on Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
Timothy Renner, musician, author, and paranormal investigator, has been digging into the bizarre and highly strange side of the Bigfoot phenomenon through his investigations, popular podcasts, and numerous books on the subject. Join me, Brendan Brown, and Gwen Purcell for a candid interview with Tim to discuss the highly strange occurrences going on within his investigation areas deep within the forests of central Pennsylvania. On the next From Behind Tall Trees, Wednesday, March 2nd, only here on CARC Universal. See you there.
All right, and Gwen, do you have anything to add by chance?
What's that?
Anything to add?
No, I'm
All
good.
right. All right.
I do want to throw out there that I feel like I led a lot of this conversation needlessly. It would be great to come back on with
Absolutely.
specific stuff. And hopefully I'll be a little less Red Bulled up. Because now that I think about it, I was up till midnight. I did get up at 4. I really am surviving on Red Bull today, you know? I might be more chill sometime. So, but yeah, if you get Ben Radford or Joe Nickel, especially Ben Radford, because I've had communications with him. But Joe Nickel is like legendary skeptic, and you know, I've read his stuff and I'm not convinced. And yeah, I would definitely like to hear his opinions, see how many of them still stand.
Well, I will reach out to him. Brendan, go ahead, take us out.
You've been watching Paranormal Files Into the Darkness, a Catskill Appalachian Research Collective production. For more information on this program and others like it, remember to like, share, and subscribe to CARC Universal today. To join the conversation on our Facebook group, become a member of the Catskill Appalachian Research Collective Facebook group. CARC. Relentless.